Long before the Jedi, before the Republic, before stars even had names, the Force existed as a silent ocean. And within that ocean, balance was not peace. It was tension, a fragile pull between creation and destruction, between life and decay. And from that endless tension, the first willful beings emerged, entities not of flesh, but of thought. Some sought harmony within this power, others control. And those who sought control became the first shadows, the ancestors of what we would one day call the Sith. Part 1, the origin beyond time. The word Sith did not always mean evil. In the beginning, it was the name of a species, ancient crimson-skinned beings who lived on the distant world of Korriban. But long before them came another order, not bound by species, but by desire. According to forbidden Jedi texts, the dark side did not appear, it called. It whispered to those who stared too long into the cosmic void, promising truth unfiltered by morality. Some of the earliest Force adepts, explorers of the primordial galaxy, found themselves drawn to its call. They were philosophers, scientists, dreamers. They believed the Force was not something to obey, but something to shape. And so began the first experimentations, the bending of the Force not to serve life, but to redefine it. From their visions came life forms unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, winged beasts made from energy, obsidian crystals humming with power, and beings who could survive death by binding their essence to the void. These first Dark Lords were not yet called Sith. They were known as the Architects of Will. They believed that by embracing the raw, chaotic current of the dark side, they could merge with the very fabric of the universe, becoming gods of their own creation. Some succeeded, others were consumed, leaving behind tombs that hummed with hatred for eternity. When the galaxy began to cool, when the first sentient civilizations arose, the architects were gone. But their knowledge, their influence, had seated itself deep within the Force, waiting, watching. Thousands of years later, explorers from the Jedi Order, then called the Jedi, discovered Korriban. They met the native Sith species, and with them, they found traces of something horrifyingly familiar, writings and relics bearing the mark of the architects. The Jedi realized that the dark side had not vanished, it had evolved. Part 2, the ancient war of shadows, the Jedi. Order believed in balance, using both light and dark to maintain harmony. But balance, as the Force teaches, is always temporary. Over centuries, factions emerged, those who favored the light for healing, and those who wielded the dark for power. And thus began the first great schism. The followers of the dark side declared that the Force's true purpose was not balance, but dominance. They claimed that life itself was the Force's instrument, that those strong enough to bend it should rule. One of their leaders, an unnamed warrior philosopher, proclaimed, "The light is a lie. There is only passion, and through passion, we find truth." It was from his words that the Sith Code would one day be born. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The Dark Adepts built temples that bled energy into the sky. The Light Adepts forged kyber crystals that burned pure white. Planets cracked under the pressure of Force storms, raw manifestations of hatred and despair. In the chaos, entire civilizations were erased. And in the end, the victors of that war, the followers of the light, banished the survivors to the outer rim of the galaxy. They believed the war was over. They were wrong, for those exiled adepts eventually discovered Korriban, where the red-skinned Sith species lived in isolation. The two groups merged, warriors and sorcerers bound by vengeance. The exiles became gods to the natives, teaching them the ways of the dark side. This union gave birth to something entirely new, the Sith Empire. And deep within that empire, among tombs carved into crimson stone, a prophecy began to form. It spoke of the rule of one will powerful enough to command the Force itself, one being destined to bring an end to both Jedi and Sith and restore true order to the galaxy. This prophecy, misinterpreted over eons, would eventually become the foundation of the Sith obsession with destiny and the legend of the Chosen One. The exiled adepts had found refuge on Korriban, but what they built there was not peace. It was obsession. For the first time in galactic history, power became religion, and the dark side became scripture. Part 3. The Forbidden Temples. The Sith Empire flourished in the shadows of forgotten stars. From their capital on Korriban to the blood-red deserts of Zeost, their temples rose, monuments of cruelty and beauty intertwined. These were not mere places of worship. They were conduits designed to amplify the dark side itself. Each temple was aligned to a different principle: fear, rage, desire, pain, and deceit. Together, they formed a network of corruption, pulsing through the Force like arteries of darkness. The greatest among these temples was the Maw of Eternity, carved deep into the core of Korriban itself. There, the first true Sith Lords communed with ancient spirits that predated time. They believed these entities were the original architects, the creators of the dark side, and through them, the Sith sought one ultimate truth: how to defy death. The ritual texts they uncovered were unlike anything the Jedi possessed. They spoke not of unity with the Force, but of dominion over it. The light dissolves into the Force, one passage read, but the dark commands it to obey. Through blood sacrifice, meditation within the dark temples, and the binding of one's soul to relics, the Sith began their earliest experiments in essence transference. Some succeeded, their consciousnesses living on in objects, tombs, or even other bodies. Others failed, their minds fractured, echoing forever in the haunted corridors of their own temples. This was the beginning of the Sith concept of immortality through domination. Not eternal life of body, but eternal will. The idea that if one's hatred was strong enough, it could outlive death itself. Part 4. The Rise of the Sith. Lord centuries passed. The Sith Empire grew in power, uniting the red-skinned natives and the human exiles under a single rule: the Dark Council. 13 lords governed, each a master of a different domain of the Force. Lord Sato, Lord Kresh, Lord Adas, names that would become legend, their stories etched in the blood of history. It was Lord Adas, the self-proclaimed immortal God King of Korriban, who would first bring unity through fear. He wielded an obsidian weapon said to be older than the galaxy itself, a relic forged by the architects, humming with dark energy. It was through this relic that Adas claimed to commune directly with the dark side, not as a servant, but as its equal. He led the Sith against the Rakata, an ancient empire that enslaved worlds through the power of the Force. The Rakata sought to dominate the Sith as they had others, but Adas resisted. His rage was so pure, so absolute, that it broke the Rakatan technology designed to suppress the Force. This was the moment the galaxy changed forever. For in his victory, Adas proved that the dark side could overcome even the will of gods, but power, as always, consumes itself. After Adas's death, the Dark Council fractured. Rival lords turned on each other, their temples becoming battlefields. Zeost burned for centuries, its atmosphere thick with the screams of the fallen. It was during this era that the Sith Code, the creed that defined their philosophy, was born. Though its true author is lost to time, legend attributes it to Sorzu Sin, a sorceress who believed that suffering was the only path to enlightenment. Her writings declared, "Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me." To the Sith, these words were not poetry. They were law. Every victory was sacred. Every act of cruelty, a lesson. Every death, even their own, was merely a door waiting to be opened again through the dark side. But beneath the rituals, beneath the temples and wars, there lay a deeper truth. The Sith were never united by ideology, only by the hunger to dominate. Their greatest weakness was not the Jedi, it was each other, and as their empire expanded into the stars, it carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. Part V. The fall of the first Sith empire power without unity breeds ruin. As the Sith expanded their dominion, rival lords sought to overthrow one another. Entire worlds burned as each tried to prove supremacy through bloodshed. When the Jedi finally encountered them again, it led to the Great Hyperspace War, a conflict that spanned galaxies. The Sith Lord Nagasato attempted to conquer the Republic, using sorcery to conjure solar flares and illusions of entire fleets. For a moment, he nearly succeeded, but betrayal from within destroyed him. His rival, Ludo Kresh, struck at the moment of Sado's triumph. The Sith were routed, their empire shattered. Survivors fled into deep space, scattered, broken, forgotten, but not destroyed. Part 6. The Lost Sith. Worlds, for centuries, the surviving Sith Lords wandered among the stars. Some found exile on hidden worlds, Dromund Kaas, Malachor, Exegol. On each, the Sith evolved in secrecy, their knowledge growing darker. On Dromund Kaas, they built the Citadel of Wrath, where storms raged eternally, drawn by the dark side itself. There, they perfected rituals that could consume entire minds, the first experiments in creating Force abominations. On Malachor, they forged superweapons powered by kyber crystals corrupted through pain, echoes of the weapon that would one day become the Death Star. And on Exegol, something older waited, a temple built before history, whose walls whispered the voice of the dark side itself. The Sith who entered never returned whole. Part 7. Darth Bane and the Rule of Two. Thousands of years passed before one Sith. A visionary named Darth Bane realized that the Sith's greatest enemy was not the Jedi, but their own greed. He studied the writings of Revan, the Sith who had once been Jedi, and concluded a terrible truth. The dark side's power cannot be shared. It must be concentrated, so Bane destroyed the Brotherhood of Darkness, killing thousands of his own kind in one night. From their ashes he created the Rule of Two. Two there shall be, no more, no less. A master to embody power, an apprentice to crave it. Through this rule, Bane ensured that the Sith would never destroy themselves again. They would become a shadow, invisible, patient, waiting for centuries to strike. Part 8. The immortal line from Bane came a secret lineage. Darth Zana, Darth Plagueis, and eventually, Darth Sidious. Each generation perfected what the first Sith had dreamed of, dominion over death. Plagueis nearly succeeded, learning to manipulate the midi-chlorians to create life itself. But Sidious killed him, taking the secret for himself. His empire was not built from armies alone, but from fear, the same fuel the first Sith temples had drawn from. Through Sidious, the Sith achieved what they had always sought, the galaxy united under the will of one. Part 9. The Sith eternal, but even death could not hold him. On Exegol, hidden cults preserved Sidious's body and essence, just as the ancient Sith had preserved their own. There they cloned him, rebuilt him, and crowned him Emperor of the Sith Eternal, the culmination of every dark dream since Korriban. The dark side had come full circle, from gods who tried to command the Force, to a man who used it to enslave galaxies. The Sith were never simply evil. They were truth without mercy. They believed that suffering was the only teacher, that peace was a chain, and that through passion, the galaxy itself could be reborn. And yet, every time they rose, their own hunger destroyed them, because the one truth the Sith never learned was balance. The dark side may grant power, but power always demands a price.